They say palace disputes are handled behind velvet curtains, but this one tore straight through the fabric of royal decorum. Princess Eugenie, once hailed as the humanitarian torchbearer of the younger royals, has allegedly been removed without warning, without mercy from a key charity board. And at the centre of this power play, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh. Insiders say the confrontation was icy, the consequences seismic. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. What happened behind those guarded walls was not a polite reshuffle. It was, according to those who claim to know, an abrupt and calculated removal that left seasoned palace aides stunned into silence. Eugenie had not merely lent her name to the charity in question, she had helped reshape it, modernize its outreach, and connect it with a younger global audience. For years, she poured herself into the cause, speaking passionately about reform, transparency, and measurable impact. And then, almost overnight, her seat was gone. No grand announcement, no carefully worded statement, just a quiet erasure that felt louder than any press conference ever could. Sources whisper that Sophie delivered what one insider called a final ultimatum behind closed doors. No raised voices, no dramatic gestures, just firm resolve. A line drawn. It was not framed as personal, at least not publicly. It was presented as strategic, necessary, a decision for the stability of the institution. But to Eugenie, the implications cut deeper. This was not just about policy disagreements. It was about being told, in no uncertain terms, that her vision for the future of royal philanthropy had crossed an invisible boundary. Conflicting views had been simmering for months. Eugenie's recent public statements, carefully measured yet subtly progressive, raised eyebrows within traditionalist circles. Her patronage choices leaned toward bold, sometimes uncomfortable conversations. She embraced causes that demanded confrontation rather than quiet diplomacy. Some senior advisors reportedly warned that the monarchy's charitable arm must remain above controversy. Eugenie believed that meaningful change required courage, and somewhere between courage and caution, the fault line widened. Then came the murmurs about legacy. The Queen's charities, once symbols of steady continuity, were, according to insiders, being quietly redirected. New leadership structures, new oversight, new voices at the table. Sophie, long underestimated by the public, had been strengthening her influence in precisely these areas. She was not loud about it. She did not need to be. Her authority grew through consistency, through proximity to the center of power. When the shift happened, it did not feel spontaneous. It felt prepared. The tension between the Edinburgh and York branches of the family had always been politely masked. Public smiles, coordinated appearances, shared statements of unity. But beneath the polished surface, competing philosophies clashed. One side believed in evolution, carefully managed, perhaps, but inevitable. The other guarded tradition as if it was sacred armor. Eugenie, despite her royal bloodline, increasingly found herself positioned as an outlier. Sophie, despite marrying into the institution, stood firmly aligned with its protective core. Inside the palace, the reaction was emotional. Some staff members who had worked closely with Eugenie were said to be devastated. They admired her energy, her willingness to listen, her modern approach. A few reportedly questioned whether the move signaled a tightening grip on all charitable messaging. Others remained silent, knowing how quickly alliances can shift within royal corridors. Loyalty is complicated when hierarchy speaks. Eugenie herself, according to those claiming proximity, did not erupt in public anger. She absorbed the blow, but privately she made one thing clear: she would not accept being sidelined without protest. Her removal was framed as administrative. Yet to her supporters, it felt personal, a message sent, a boundary enforced. And as the shock settled into a cold, lingering unease, it became clear that this was never just about committee minutes or board votes, because beneath the language of restructuring and institutional responsibility, something far more profound was unfolding. Influence was being consolidated, lines were being redrawn, and what began as a quiet adjustment within a charity boardroom was rapidly revealing itself as a test of power within the monarchy's inner circle. But this wasn't just about a board seat, it was about control, legacy, and a quiet war boiling under the surface of royal duty. To the world, Sophie is all poise and protocol. But palace insiders paint a very different portrait, one of strategy, silent power, and a years-long climb toward influence that few saw coming. What transformed the Duchess of Edinburgh from the supportive spouse to the key player who could unseat a blood princess? Sophie's ascent did not happen overnight, nor did it draw attention. For years, she stood in the shadows of louder voices, bigger scandals, and flashier titles. Yet, in the quiet, she watched, observed, adapted. She became Queen Elizabeth's trusted companion during the monarch's final chapters, gaining not only favor but access to private thoughts, delicate plans, and evolving visions of the monarchy's future. While others were splintering or seeking the spotlight, Sophie was learning where real influence lived. In proximity, consistency, and timing. And when the Queen's health began to decline, insiders say Sophie stepped into a silent void that needed filling not through ceremony, but strategy. Following 2022, as the monarchy shifted into a new reign, there was one arena where Sophie's fingerprints became impossible to ignore: strategic charity placements. While public attention drifted toward the coronation or royal family dramas across the Atlantic, Sophie was recalibrating the monarchy's soft power. She began to appear at events where senior staff had curated new partnerships. Long-standing patronages were re-evaluated, and lesser-known institutions were suddenly given fresh attention under her name. It was a subtle realignment, and most missed it. But behind palace gates, it was clear Sophie was building a network. Not flashy, not loud, but enduring. Titles were being reshuffled, roles reassigned, not with grand announcements but with quiet authority. As King Charles took on his sovereign duties, Sophie worked within the gaps, supporting him publicly, yes, but privately carving out influence over causes once reserved for the more senior royals. Eugenie, with her bold vision, had become a wild card. In contrast, Sophie was the palace's reliable hand, the iron within the silk. Some insiders began referring to her as the stabilizer, the one who soothed tension but never forgot strategy. After Prince Philip's passing, that steadiness turned into consolidation. What had once been peripheral presence became strategic placement, and beneath it all, there was something more personal, something fiercely maternal. The quiet theory circulating among royal aides suggests Sophie wasn't merely protecting the monarchy. She was laying foundations for her daughter, Lady Louise. Unlike Eugenie, who had her title from birth, Louise would need positioning, patronage, and path. Sophie, it seems, intended to secure that path, ensuring the causes she touched would eventually be inherited. Every patronage gained, every board influence acquired, might one day become Louise's. And that long-term vision made her far more dangerous than many assumed. Palace staff, those who've served under multiple royal households, have described Sophie's style as an iron hand in velvet gloves. She doesn't shout, she doesn't slam doors, she speaks once, firmly, and waits. Decisions are never rushed, but when they come, they are final. Her reputation as kind and reliable to the public is not inaccurate, it's simply incomplete. Internally, she's respected, even feared, for her ability to outmaneuver without ever stepping out of line. But while Sophie played the long game with silent precision, Eugenie's approach was far bolder and, some say, dangerously defiant. She was the royal who dared to modernize the monarchy's charity image, unfiltered interviews, daring causes, and digital-first engagement. Princess Eugenie wasn't afraid to color outside the palace lines. But was her passion too radical for the firm? Was her mission the very thing that got her removed? Eugenie was never meant to lead the charge, yet somehow she became the spark the monarchy didn't know it needed and perhaps didn't want. Her commitment to ending human trafficking wasn't just a polite endorsement from the sidelines. She immersed herself in the darkest corners of the crisis, forging partnerships with survivors, confronting governments, and aligning with organizations that didn't wait for royal approval. Her advocacy was raw, personal, and unsettling in its honesty. She used social media not to promote fashion or palace events, but to draw attention to the realities few in her position ever dared to speak about. For a brief moment she seemed unstoppable, a force of conviction cloaked in a tiara, and yet that very force was beginning to grate on the old guard. Her collaborations with American NGOs, many of whom operated with transparency-first policies, were met with unease back at the palace. These groups weren't built around deference or protocol. They expected candidness. They expected action. Eugenie delivered both, but in doing so, she walked a treacherous line. The more she engaged with activists outside the royal system, the more whispers emerged that she was drifting too far from the firm's tightly managed messaging. Her interviews were subtle, never explosive, but the undertones were unmistakable. She spoke of change, of progress, of dismantling barriers that still exist in the most surprising places. She didn't name names, but she didn't need to. The palace knew who she meant. Some saw her as a modern princess speaking truth to power. Others saw her as a royal liability, destabilizing the institution from within. Advisors tried to intervene, suggesting edits, reviewing transcripts, watering down statements. But Eugenie, raised in privilege yet shaped by personal trials, refused to dilute her voice. Every time they pulled her back, she pushed harder. It didn't help that her bond with Harry and Meghan remained warm, even defiant. While others kept distance from the Sussexes, Eugenie stood firm, visiting, laughing, supporting. That quiet loyalty raised eyebrows in palace corridors. In a time when alignment was everything, her choice to remain close to the couple who broke from the system was viewed less as family affection and more as a political stance. And whether she realized it or not, each gesture chipped away at the firm's patience. As Eugenie's media presence grew, so did internal discomfort. She was being booked on global panels. Influencers and journalists praised her candor. Young people started looking to her as the relatable royal. But behind the palace walls, that relatability was a red flag. The monarchy did not seek relatability, it sought reverence. And in a world spinning faster than the crown could manage, Eugenie was seen as dangerously ahead of the curve. And so, as applause echoed from the outside world, whispers inside the palace grew louder. Some said she was too bold, too free. Others argued she was what the monarchy needed. But one thing was certain: Eugenie was no longer just a young royal supporting good causes. She had become a voice, a movement. And the firm has never been kind to movements it cannot control. Yet beneath the public missions and internal whispers, a deeper divide was forming, a silent civil war between royal futures. Royal charities aren't just acts of goodwill, they're statements of power, influence, and alignment. In a world where image is everything, who gets to decide which causes carry the crown's name? Insiders say Sophie and Eugenie were on opposite ends of a brewing ideological war. For decades, royal patronages were tools of soft diplomacy, delicately wielded to showcase continuity, compassion, and cultural relevance. The Queen understood the symbolism. Where a royal lent their name, attention followed. But in this new era, fractured, scrutinized, and rapidly shifting, the stakes had changed. No longer were charities simply hand-picked for tradition's sake. They had become platforms of ideology. And in the eye of this transformation, two women found themselves on a collision course. Sophie, having studied the legacy she married into, gravitated toward tradition. Her causes echoed the late Queen's ethos: low profile, legacy-driven, non-political. Healthcare, military support, child welfare. She kept her work consistent, guarded, and within the comfort of institutional approval. There was power in predictability. Her presence symbolized stability, and in a monarchy fighting off modern chaos, that image was invaluable. She knew that influence didn't require noise, it demanded control. Eugenie, however, wasn't interested in safe. Her charity work poked at wounds the palace preferred to bandage, not expose: human trafficking, climate activism, victim advocacy, topics that stirred emotion, triggered debate, and forced accountability. Her engagements were global, her partnerships diverse. She didn't just lend her name, she challenged systems. But to the institution, challenge often equaled risk, and risk, for the royals, is rarely forgiven. Behind the scenes, tensions mounted. Joint meetings between their respective teams became colder. Messaging around shared events required multiple revisions. Eugenie wanted urgency and authenticity. Sophie demanded consistency and caution. Branding decisions were debated. Eugenie wanted to spotlight the voices of survivors. Sophie insisted on unified palace language. According to one insider, a boardroom showdown ended with neither woman speaking as they left the room, their advisors exchanging only curt nods. What had once been cordial difference had become an unspoken rivalry, one rooted not in personal animosity, but in fundamentally opposing visions of what the modern royal brand should stand for. And the battle wasn't confined to ideas. There were vetoes. Planned projects mysteriously delayed, funding reallocated, certain media appearances long in the works abruptly cancelled. Eugenie's team suspected interference, though nothing could be traced directly. Sophie's allies, meanwhile, insisted they were only maintaining alignment with the Crown's broader communications strategy. But even palace veterans couldn't deny the pattern. The chessboard had shifted. Every move Eugenie made seemed to trigger a counter, quiet, bureaucratic, and devastatingly effective. What was once a debate over causes now reflected something deeper, the soul of the monarchy's public image. Could a royal be a disruptor, or was it their duty to preserve? Eugenie represented a future the monarchy couldn't fully control. Sophie represented a past it still clung to. And as public silence grew louder between the two women, the palace itself began to fracture into ideological camps, choosing sides in a war no one dared name aloud. And just as the charity clash threatened to spiral into public fallout, something else quietly tipped the scales. Whispers of a closed-door meeting at Windsor have set the palace rumour mill ablaze. Only 5 people were reportedly present, and after that gathering, Eugenie was gone from the boardroom. What was said, who stood their ground, and why was this meeting never acknowledged officially? It was a Monday, cold and silent, when the whispers began. Not a press release, not a headline, just the careful shuffling of power behind locked doors. No public schedule, no ceremonial fanfare, just 5 names allegedly summoned for a purpose that had long been in motion but never spoken aloud. Sophie, composed and resolute. Edward, quiet but calculating. A senior private secretary, trusted, precise, the palace's voice when silence must speak. The chair of the charity board, whose presence confirmed the move was official. And then an unnamed royal. Not Charles and not William, but someone close enough to the crown to witness history without ever leaving finger. Prince. They arrived discreetly. Not by cavalcade but by staggered entries, timed to avoid attention. Travel logs later noted anomalies, brief car trips, no photos, aides speaking in codes. Security was increased without public explanation. The meeting lasted under 2 hours. But by the time they emerged, the decision had already taken root. Eugenie's name was gone from the charity register before the week ended. No announcement, just absence. Just a quiet void where once there was a signature. Sources say the conversation was direct. Allegedly, Sophie delivered the line that set the tone. "We've allowed too much leeway for too long." It was not said with anger, but with finality. One of the attendees, rumoured to be wavering, was reportedly told that failure to act now would lead to resignations from within the charity's upper ranks. The threat, while never made public, was potent enough to silence dissent. Rumours suggest that documents formalising Eugenie's removal were already printed and signed, her fate sealed before she even received word. The meeting was never about discussion. It was a confirmation. When Eugenie was informed, her response came quickly. No protest, no plea, just a message relayed through an aide that would later echo through every corridor of royal intrigue. "Tell her I won't stand for it." 6 words, a line that split the room. Some said it was defiance. Others heard heartbreak. But the message was unmistakable. Eugenie would not go quietly. She may have been cut out, but she would not be erased. What made the meeting even more chilling was who wasn't there. King Charles, the head of the institution, had deliberately stepped back. His absence was a statement in itself. To some, it meant neutrality. To others, silent consent. Either way, his decision to avoid the room, allowed the move to proceed without royal obstruction, without the weight of his signature, but under the shadow of his approval. From that day forward, palace dynamics shifted, schedules were rearranged, meetings cancelled, relationships strained, the phones stopped ringing, not with malice but with strategy. Those who once championed Eugenie's independence began retreating, unsure where their allegiance now stood. The meeting at Windsor had done more than remove a name. It had redrawn lines of loyalty within the house itself, but even more explosive than the meeting was what came after, when alliances started shifting and phones stopped ringing. For centuries, family loyalty was the unspoken bond holding the royals together. But in the aftermath of this scandal, that bond snapped. Relationships fractured. Phone calls went unanswered. And for the first time, Eugenie found herself not just sidelined but isolated. She vanished from the family frame with chilling speed. No mention, no explanation. Her name absent from charity updates, her face missing from recent royal functions. At events where her presence once drew warm applause, there was nothing, just an empty seat and an awkward silence the palace worked hard to pretend wasn't there. Eugenie had gone from being a vibrant, active royal to a ghost within her own lineage, and those closest to her felt the chill too. Sarah Ferguson, who once proudly stood beside her daughters through scandal and scrutiny, reportedly reached out in desperation, begging for reconciliation, pleading with longtime allies for clarity. But doors didn't open, calls were left unreturned, and the palace, always pristine on the surface, remained unbothered by the storm it had quietly orchestrated. Then came the silence from Beatrice. That silence hurt more than any formal statement could have. The sisters had long been seen as a unified force, deeply bonded not just by blood, but by shared struggle. And yet, when Eugenie needed a voice beside hers, Beatrice said nothing. Not in public, not in private, not even a gesture to suggest resistance. Some believe she was warned. Others suspect she chose self-preservation. But the result was the same. Eugenie stood alone, cut off from the only familial anchor she had left in the fold. Meanwhile, Sophie and Edward moved through public appearances without so much as a flicker of controversy touching them. They smiled for the cameras, spoke warmly of duty, and presented themselves as the image of continuity. No hint of fallout, no allusion to conflict. Their silence wasn't avoidance, it was orchestration. Each gesture, each appearance, carefully curated to communicate one thing: stability. While Eugenie bled quietly behind palace walls, the machine moved forward. Inside sources whispered of Eugenie weighing her future in real time. Stripped of influence, wounded by betrayal, and shrouded in royal coldness, she reportedly began reconsidering her role altogether. Talks of stepping back from remaining patronages, a quiet exit from the public royal role she once embraced, not with scandal, not with spectacle, just a slow, agonizing fade into private life, her work, her voice, and her legacy extinguished by forces too powerful to fight head-on. And as all of this unfolded, media held its breath. Or rather, it was told to. Major outlets known for royal reporting suddenly went quiet. No speculation, no follow-up, no questions posed at official press briefings. A silence so synchronized it became deafening. And while the world searched for answers, those closest to the story began to understand. This was no coincidence. This was a tactic. But the silence was only part of the strategy. As a new royal alignment began to form in the shadows, where does Catherine stand in all of this? That's the question haunting royal observers. As the future queen and a symbol of royal stability, her silence has spoken volumes. But is it neutrality or quiet agreement with Sophie's vision? Catherine has always walked the tightrope between diplomacy and loyalty with careful grace. In every storm that has shaken the royal house, she has remained steady, composed, never offering more than a polished smile or a vague gesture of unity. And yet, those who study the rhythm of palace movements know that silence is never empty. It's strategy, calculated, practiced, and precise. Her decades inside the firm have taught her the cost of taking sides and the power of appearing not to. Which is why, in the wake of Eugenie's abrupt removal, her refusal to engage publicly has ignited more curiosity than any spoken word. Behind the scenes, Catherine's alignment with Sophie hasn't gone unnoticed. The two have long been paired at engagements, echoing each other's messaging, reflecting a shared understanding of duty over disruption. While Eugenie pushed boundaries, Catherine and Sophie upheld tradition, not with resistance, but with quiet reinforcement. They didn't need to declare to air ideology. They embodied it. And now, with the younger generation watching, Catherine's apparent support, or at least her lack of objection, has made its own statement. This is the kind of royal the firm rewards. Observers were quick to notice the absence of any interaction between Catherine and Eugenie since the fallout. Not a glance, not a shared cause, not a coincidental photo. Nothing. And while such detachment could be explained by scheduling or rank, palace insiders suggest something more deliberate. Rumours swirl of private meetings, Catherine behind closed doors with senior aides, discussing the reshaping of royal patronages, refining the public image of working royals. She doesn't just wear the crown's future, she's being entrusted to sculpt it, and in that vision, outliers like Eugenie may simply not have a place. This silent positioning doesn't just influence internal decisions, it alters public perception. When Catherine stands beside a royal, it signals approval. When she doesn't, it signals distance. In the wake of Eugenie's exile from the boardroom, the absence of even a faint gesture of support from Catherine was impossible to ignore. It reinforced an invisible hierarchy, one where values must align, messaging must be uniform, and visibility must be earned. And as Catherine's shadow grows longer over the monarchy's next chapter, the message becomes unmistakable. The crown no longer has space for wild cards, and while the future queen remained composed, another royal was not willing to keep quiet any longer. For Sarah Ferguson, this wasn't about royal politics, it was about her daughter. Sources claim Fergie launched a behind-the-scenes push to defend Eugenie, calling in old favours and even threatening to go public. But was it already too late? The moment Fergie heard the news, the response was visceral, not calculated, not restrained. A mother's fury dressed in royal silk. According to insiders, she fired off a series of emotional letters addressed directly to palace leadership, including one meant for the king himself. In those pages, she reportedly defended Eugenie's unwavering commitment to the crown, her achievements, her integrity, and her loyalty. She didn't mince words. She demanded answers. She demanded fairness. She demanded accountability. And most of all, she demanded to know why. But what she received in return was more damning than a denial. It was silence. Frustrated and increasingly desperate, Fergie picked up the phone. What followed, sources say, was a direct call to King Charles, a bold move, considering their complicated history. She pleaded with him to review the decision, to at least speak with Eugenie, to acknowledge the cruelty of erasing her daughter without explanation. But the king, known for favouring protocol over emotion, reportedly gave no definitive response. A vague assurance of looking into it was all she was left with. And just like that, the call ended with no resolution, no comfort, and no sign that justice would follow. But what this confrontation also did was unearth old ghosts. Fergie's own turbulent relationship with the firm began to resurface. Whispers that her defence of Eugenie wasn't just maternal, it was personal. A defiant stand against a system that had once cast her out too. There were murmurs that this was her revenge, her chance to say, "I told you so." But those close to her insist it wasn't vengeance. It was heartbreak, and the world saw a glimpse of it when an emotional phone call between mother and daughter, reportedly intercepted by media insiders, revealed just how shattered they both were. Fergie's voice cracking, Eugenie holding back tears. A private moment laid bare, and still the palace said nothing. No statement, no clarification, no apology. Just the cold machinery of royal silence, the kind that doesn't scream but smothers. And when even that wasn't enough to calm the rising pressure, rumours began to swirl that Fergie was ready to break her silence in the most unthinkable way by going to the press. A high-profile interview, a tell-all moment, a televised reckoning. Was it a bluff or a mother's final weapon? But as emotional pleas were ignored, one final twist would send shockwaves through the monarchy. This wasn't just a clash between two royal women. It was a calculated move to redefine the future. With Eugenie out and Sophie's influence on the rise, what does this mean for the next generation of royals? And has the line between blood and power finally been erased? In the shadow of Eugenie's quiet removal, another figure has started to rise, Lady Louise. Once kept from the spotlight by choice and age, she is now being slowly and strategically ushered into greater public visibility. And the hand guiding that ascent? Sophie's. Every move Louise makes now carries an echo of her mother's influence, subtle engagements, carefully chosen appearances and causes that align squarely with the institution's preferred image. It's not just about preparing Louise for the future, it's about ensuring the future favors those who fall in line. In the absence of Eugenie, the message is loud and clear: compliance is rewarded. Dissent is deleted. Eugenie, on the other hand, is drifting toward a different destiny. Reports suggest she is weighing a full withdrawal from royal duties, pivoting instead to global humanitarian work, untethered from the restrictions of palace oversight. Some say she's already had offers from international organizations, private foundations, even diplomatic posts. If she steps out completely, it won't be a quiet fade, it will be a reinvention. And for the monarchy, it could be a haunting echo of Harry and Meghan. Another royal voice turned outward, speaking truth beyond the veil of tradition. And what of the others? Beatrice remains in a fragile in-between, her silence during Eugenie's fallout casting a long shadow over her place in the royal sphere. Zara, long regarded as the fiercely independent cousin, now faces a future even more uncertain as the royal spotlight narrows. The younger, non-working royals are watching this shift carefully. What once felt like a family hierarchy is beginning to resemble a corporate boardroom, where titles may matter less than alliances, loyalty, and narrative control. That divide between the core and the outer ring is deepening. The royal family has always drawn quiet lines, but now, the central circle has fortified itself with precision. William, Catherine, and Sophie are forming what many insiders are calling the inner monarchy. A trio of calculated calm, unwavering duty and synchronized messaging. In their world, tradition is king, and those who deviate, even slightly, find themselves edged out with clinical efficiency. Yet the question lingers, is the public truly behind this new order? While many applaud the stability of the firm, a growing segment sees the silencing of voices like Eugenie's as a betrayal of modern values. Transparency versus tradition, progress versus preservation. The monarchy is balancing on a tightrope stretched across generations, and every step now is a test not just of power, but of survival. One thing is clear, the palace may hide its wounds behind protocol, but beneath the surface, the war for royal influence is far from over. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.